What's up, movie crew? Welcome to the list everyone's been waiting for this channel. Today, I have finally reached my top 5 films of 2022. So initially, I thought about doing a top 10 because I did see 50 or close to 50 movies in theaters. But with all the other lists, I thought I would just keep it at 5 to keep everything the same, pretty much. Before I get started, if you are new to this channel, my name is Luke, this is Let's Watch a Movie, and if you're anything cinema and physical media related, you've come to the right place, so hit that subscribe button. Now on to my top 5 of 2022. At number 5, and the only movie that I made an exception to my rule, that all the movies that I put in various lists, I tried to make sure that was its only appearance on these lists. That way you're not watching the same thing over and over again these last few days. But this one I had to make an exception given that it was on my underappreciated list. My number 5 is Vengeance. After a guy finds out that a girl he's been having an affair with of sorts is dead, her family thinks that it's more than what it really is and try to get him to come down to Texas, where they think she was killed and not just ended up dying. And seeing the mixture of someone from New York versus a family from the South, the suspense of, is this really a murder? Is this something that's really happening? What's going on here? It made for such a good movie. And like I said in my underrated list, I wish more people would have seen this movie because it was so good. It did not overstay its welcome. It had a solid cast. It had the combination of both Focus Features and Blumhouse making one movie together. Overall, one of my favorite movies, way better than I was expecting it to be, and that is why it is on this list at number 5. At number 4, we've got the most recent entry. Well, the most recent theatrical entry and the final entry of Phase 4 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. After the death of T'Challa, Wakanda is now being expected to share vibranium with the rest of the world, and when they get an unexpected visitor in Namor, it causes things to go a little topsy-turvy. This movie should not have worked the way it did, and it worked well. I want to point out, no, it is not as good as the first Black Panther movie. But for a movie that had to not only follow up one of their highest grossing, most well-received, and an Oscar award-winning film, they also had to do a movie where their lead actor passed away. And Ryan Coogler managed to deliver with every single thing. I've got to say, not only did he deliver with a solid movie, this was a good closing piece for Phase 4 of the MCU, and probably one of my favorite films in Phase 4. So I gotta say, Wakanda Forever definitely deserves a spot on my top 5, and that is why it is at number 4. At number 3. If you've seen my reviews, then you know that this is one of 3 films that I gave a perfect score to. And I said that I was trying to not put so many different, or try to put all the same movies on all these different lists. So that is why I excluded it from my top 5 horror films. My number 3 is The Black Phone. This movie is about two kids that are dealing with not the best home life, and then to make things worse, the older one gets kidnapped. And you see him communicating with some of the kidnappers' previous victims and them helping him try to break the cycle and escape from the grabber. For starters, that was the premise for this movie was enough for me to watch it. As a horror fan, I'm definitely going to check it out. And as much as people love Stephen King, I gotta say, his son, Joe Hill, who wrote the story that this is based off of, is, as controversial as this may be, he is just as good at writing horror as his father is. And this proves it. Not only that, but you have Ethan Hawke and Jeremy Davies in two of the leading roles for this movie. But then you've also got these two kids who are pretty much doing their first major feature films, and they managed to hold their own with Ethan Hawke and Jeremy Davies. And on top of that, as most people know, I'm always bitching and moaning about the runtimes of movies. This clocks in an hour and 45 minutes and does everything it needs to tell the story it's trying to tell. And again, the cast did great. This is the movie that Scott Derrickson did after dropping out of Doctor Strange. And it's got a stellar cast. I highly recommend checking this out if you have not. And it is definitely one of the best horror films of 2022. My runner-up, the only movie that I saw in theaters twice this year, and as weird as this still sounds to say, it is probably my favorite Batman movie, and that is The Batman. Now, I wasn't one of those going in thinking that Robert Pattinson wasn't going to be able to do his job. I've seen him in Good Time, for those that want to see him do action stuff, and I saw him in Cosmopolis, even though that's not the type of Bruce Wayne we ended up getting. But Matt Reeves has proven himself time and time again as a solid director, and with this movie, he managed to do that again. Other than a 3-hour runtime, which I still personally think a couple scenes could have been cut a little bit shorter, he managed to make every character compelling. So much so that we are getting a Penguin spinoff. Paul Dano, who played the Riddler, is currently writing a Riddler comic with the first issue now available. Robert Pattinson is coming back as the Batman for a future sequel, and we even have other spinoffs planned. This movie did something that we never really get in a Batman movie. One of the many nicknames that he has is the world's greatest detective. And we actually get the best Batman detective movie ever with this. And yes, I will say it, as much of a Nolan stan as I am, I will say that the Batman is better than the Dark Knight. You can quote me on that. That is how much I enjoyed this movie, and it is definitely my favorite live-action Batman to date. And finally, my number one movie. Something that shouldn't really surprise anyone given the amount of times I've talked about it and praised and gushed over it and all that stuff. Everything, everywhere, all at once. I've got to say, when I found out that my local Regal was not going to have this opening weekend, I was pissed. I think I had to wait a good 3 or 4 weeks before it finally hit my area. But I've got to say, at the end of it, it was worth it. This movie legit has everything. It goes everywhere, and everything's happening all at once. And it's got a stellar cast. Everyone is actually doing their own thing. It's not just, oh, hey, there's that character. Hi, and then you never see them again. Every character you see has a purpose for being there. And when they get into the multiverse part of this thing, things actually go batshit crazy. Something we do not get in some of these other multiverse movies. It's always, oh, it's so-and-so, but they're evil. Or it's so-and-so, but they married this person instead of this person. No, they gave us a parallel world where people have hot dog fingers, one where they're rocks with googly eyes, and one where they're piñatas. I will put money on the line that we won't get anything like that from Marvel. And this is coming from a Marvel fan. This movie, and even with having everything, with sci-fi, with romance, with horror, at the end of it all, this, at its core, is a family story. And manages to tell a good family story at its core with all of these other things going on around it. I cannot praise this movie enough. I am so glad I got to see it in theaters. I wish I could have seen one of the limited IMAX screenings because I would have went to see it again. No complaints with this movie. A24 did their thing. The Daniels, they did their thing. Michelle Yeoh shines as the lead in this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis was phenomenal, and it even took me a minute to realize that that was Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie, hands down, my favorite. I know I'm not the only person that's going to be saying that with some of these lists that you're seeing, but any award and accolade that Everything Everywhere All at Once gets, it is more than deserved. It is easily my number one film of 2022, and it's got me very excited for whatever the Daniels do next. And that is my top 5 movies of 2022. So we've got one more list. And of course, it's going to show up on New Year's Day. And that is my 5 most anticipated films of 2023. There's a lot of stuff that's already been announced. A lot of things I'm excited for. So I want to go ahead and share that. And then at the end of the year, see if my anticipation versus what I ended up enjoying. Let's do a compare and contrast at the end of 2023 and see what happens. But that's going to do it for this one. If you are new to this channel, hit that subscribe button. You like what you see, leave a thumbs up. Comment down below. What are your favorite films of 2022? But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all for watching and tune in next time.